Please sit down. I welcome you to the November meeting of Full Council at Tottenham Town Hall. Please can attendees note the information contained on agenda sheet at item 1 on filming of meetings. To confirm that this meeting is being streamed live to the public and available on the Council website. This meeting is also recorded by the Council for subsequent broadcast via the Council's internet site. Before starting the items, please can the Democratic Services Officer confirm with our sound and audio engineer that there are no issues with the streaming of this meeting so far and it is available to the public.
There are no issues with the streaming and recording of the meeting.
I wanted to set out some important health and safety information for attendees to note. There is a long-running and lately more heightened risk to health and safety of elected representatives. As a council, there is an overarching responsibility to ensure that councillors are able to carry out their duties and responsibilities in a safe environment and without any risk of harassment, intimidation or violence. Therefore, if any interruption is deemed as a risk to health and safety of the attendees, security will immediately take reasonable action to eliminate the risk and remove the individual from the meeting room. There will be no risks taken to preserve the safety of attendees, and I ask that attendees note this information. If any issues arise, I will explain the procedures. Item 2, apologies for absence. I call on the Director of Culture, Strategy and Engagement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The following councillors have submitted apologies. Councillor Ishala Gosling, Councillor Mark Blake, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Rossetti, Councillor Collette, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Barnes, Councillor Wallace, Councillor Hakata and Councillor Hymas.
Item 3, late items of urgent business. I call on the Director for Culture, Strategy and Engagement.
Madam Mayor, I'm asking you to agree the admission of the following late items of business that could not be made available earlier and need to be dealt with at this meeting. These are item 9C, report from the Standards Committee, item 11, questions and written answers, and item 12, motions. In relation to the reports under item 9, reports from committees, the Standards Committee report is late as the meeting took place close to the publication of council papers, and there is a need to consider these recommendations prior to the March council meeting. In relation to item 11, questions and written answers, the reason for lateness is that notice of questions is not requested until 8 clear days before the meeting, following which the matters raised have to be researched and replies prepared to be given at the meeting. And item 12, motions. The amendments to motions are not requested until 10 a.m. on the day of the council meeting, and we have received an amendment to motion E, which has been published and distributed today in the tabled pack.
I accept these as late items of business for the reasons outlined. Item 4, please can members consider information on agenda item 4 on the front of the agenda. Would anyone like to declare an interest? Councillor Mason.
I declare an interest in Bounds Green Food Bank. I'm not a decision maker at the food bank, but I do run the advice and support service there, and I'm on the interim coordinating group there. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5, minutes of the council meeting held on the 22nd of July and 10th of October. I call on the Director for Culture, Strategy and Engagement.
Madam Mayor, I'm asking the council to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meetings held on the 22nd of July 2024 and the 10th of October 2024.
Are they agreed? They are agreed. Item 6. I have emailed my communications prior to the meeting. As Mayor, I get to see how wonderful Haringey is. Haringey is the most tremendous and best borough. I get to see the personalities and achievements of our residents. While Haringey is a beautiful green borough, its people are its jewels and its wealth. It seems a long time ago now, but the 10th anniversary of Ark Resettlement Services was unforgettable. I met the kindest, most humblest people who are so full of hope and forgiveness that they have established a charity to help ex-prisoners get on their feet. They have worked to build relationships and systems with landlords to provide housing and with other organisations to help people work their way back into our communities. It's the most impressive organisation and an absolute credit to the character of Haringey. The whole country has had Black History Month with the theme of reclaiming the narrative. We launched our Black History Month at the Bernie Grant Arts Centre, and last Tuesday I returned to the Bernie Grant Arts Centre as Zainab Badawi was in discussion about her debut book, An African History of Africa. She was interviewed by Paula Akpan. The month was full of extra celebrations and events, including quiz nights, panel discussions celebrating Black business success, and National Hate Crime Awareness Week. Black History Haringey 365 is a testament to Haringey and its beautiful people. A personal highlight of Black History Month was the Somali Culture Night, where I received the warmest possible welcome. I took the opportunity to encourage more people from the Somalian community to become councillors because Ibrahim, my fellow ward councillor, is such a star and also needs some competition, and we may all prefer a Spurs supporter. As Mayor, I get to see so many communities in action, providing services, clubs and refuge for the people of Haringey, and lots of these are led by women, such as Bright Stars Autistic Club, a Saturday club for autistic teenagers, Women at the Well of Living Waters, a project that feeds the homeless, and the Heroes Haven for sufferers of breast cancer. Our last full council meeting in October was our first where our youth panel spoke to our council leader and cabinet. We were all impressed at their fearlessness, eloquence and insight, and of course, their ability to keep to time. Despite the clocks changing, I still attempt to shoehorn into every speech what a beautiful green borough Haringey is to live, work and thrive in. So it was a delight to attend the Markfield Park Community Gardens event, celebrating the relocation of the Balance Garden from the Chelsea Flower Show to Markfield Park. The project is a credit to Councillor Mark Roskopf. The park now sites a pond for children to find creepy crawlies and other poor, unsuspecting creatures. Haringey is home to so many vibrant communities, all making such a rich contribution. The huge Kurdish and Turkish community bring Green Lanes to life and does so much outreach work in its own right and as part of the Multi-Faith Forum. We owe this community so much, not least for their assistance in helping me fundraise for Mind. It makes a massive social and economic contribution, and its community ethos is priceless. I attended a flag-raising event on the HMS Belfast in recognition of our Caribbean heroes' contribution to our armed services. We toasted the servicemen and women with rum, and it would have been rude to refuse. It is an honour as Mayor to commemorate Remembrance Sunday and to lay wreaths remembering those who fought for our freedoms, rights and peace. Sister Bibi Khan from the Whiteman Mosque, her words were poetic, truthful and powerful. We are also lucky to live in such a vibrant, diverse borough where we have so many solid communities building families and foundations for the next generation, leaving them free to explore the world, safe in the knowledge that their community is always there for them. I would like to finish by gloating some more about how lucky I am to be mayor of such a wonderful place. Having seen it with my own eyes, my belief that this is a role to be shared amongst us has grown. For those who might not consider this role, I have to say you don't know what you're missing. But the New Year's Day Parade, which we are currently working on, will show everyone just how wonderful this borough is. On a sadder note, we have been saddened to hear today of the recent passing of former Mayor Erlene Prescott, who served as a councillor for West Green Ward between 1990 to 1998 and 2002 to 2006. Erlene was Deputy Mayor in 1993 to 1994 and became the first Black female Mayor of Haringey in 1994. She then further served as mayor between 2003 and 2004. We offer the council's condolences to Erlene's family and her son Quincy Prescott Prescott, a former Hornsey mayor. I now invite Councillor Sheila Peacock to say a few words in memory of Erlene.
I didn't appreciate. Have you called me? Because I didn't hear. And you seem to have read out everything that I was going to say. So I'll read it out again as a personal friend of Erlene, who I knew very well. And I was her agent when she was first elected in 1990, which was a long time ago before nearly everybody here was present on the council. She was elected deputy mayor, as you just heard, in 1993 to 94. And she became mayor in 94. And then again, I persuaded her to re-stand again, and she stood in 2003. Erlene was the first black woman to become Haringey mayor in 1994. She was a strong advocate for diversity and was an advocate for the relaunch of the Tottenham Carnival, which I ran from 1997 up until 2012. She supported lots of community initiatives aiming at improving community safety, access to health services and promoting community cohesion. When she was mayor, she joined many of the functions that I put on, and for her to make sure that every voice was heard in the borough, because she recognised that that was very important. As mayor, Erlene was a strong advocate for youth projects that promoted education and recreation in the borough. And her son Quincy was also a great friend of mine. And then he went to, he married somebody in Ireland and went to live in Ireland. The mayor's charity was Action for Kids in 2003-2004. Raising many thousands of pounds for this worthwhile Haringey-based charity. And I was very pleased to assist her in doing so, because I realised that the Mayor's charity is very important to all the people that you're raising funds for. So my condolences to the family, and particularly to Quincy and his family.
We will now stand in a 1-minute silence to remember Erlene.
People tell me if you get to these kind of numbers on social media, you would have a great life. Like, you never have to worry about anything again. But I haven't had a single offer of a paid partnership, and I used to do a lot of voiceover work. So this is, hopefully we'll get to this. This is the kind of reality of Ireland. The people in Ireland are amazing. I'm so proud of them. In my own county, we've got rallies and marches and protests in every little town and park, and I'm so proud of that. But the elite, the people that run this country, particularly in Dublin.
Welcome back. Now, the Education Secretary has told Channel 4 News that vulnerable children in the care system have been failed, despite what she said was an absolute fortune being spent on. Bridget Phillipson's promised to carry out the biggest overhaul of children's social care.
Thank you. Please be seated.
And reveals that the average spend on children's homes has soared by 137% over the past 6 years. The government has outlined...
Item 7. I call on the Director of Culture, Strategy and Engagement to briefly introduce Agenda Item 7, appointment of the Honorary Recorder of Haringey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very pleased to put this report forward to full council. The council was pleased to receive the nomination of His Honour Judge Dodd KC from the Royal Courts of Justice to be appointed as the Honorary Recorder for Haringey. An honorary recorder is an unpaid ceremonial office created by the Local Government Act 1972. It aims to facilitate closer links between councils and the judiciary, and to enhance understanding of the judicial system among the community. The functions of honorary recorder include attending ceremonial and civic functions and inviting members of the council to attend judicial events. We would also like to express our thanks to Judge Lucas, our outgoing honorary recorder, who is here this evening, and to welcome Judges David Aronberg, Tim Godfrey and Barbara Mensah to the meeting. You're very welcome. Judge Dodd, please can I invite you to say some words about your daily work and your interaction with the community. Thank you.
And I used to have a lot of things myself. I used to say, oh, that's what they do. And then it got to what I was 18.
With particular reference to Madam Mayor,
her colleagues, all of you. It is a huge honour, and I recognise it as that. I'm delighted that my wife Maggie has been able to join us all this evening, along with Noel and David and Tim. I think Barbara was due, but hasn't quite made it. Colleagues from the court. It's a particular pleasure, I have to say, that Noel is here, because Noel will forever be the first recorder of Haringey, and we both of us recognise the particular honour that appellation has. And Noel, I think, discharged his duties with great distinction. And I hope if I can be half as good as him, I'll be doing a decent job. I know you've got a very long agenda, so I'll just keep these words short, if I may. As in fact Jess has said, the role of the recorder is an important one, linking the work of the courts with the community, represented obviously by yourselves. And can I emphasize the invitation to all of you to visit us and see what we do in what is still a magnificent building. I know we're a little short of magnificent buildings in Haringey at the moment for various reasons, but the Crown Court, you know it, on Lordship Lane, is a magnificent building. And if any of you would like to come along as councillors, or indeed as members of the public, to see what we do, you are more than welcome to do that. And I hope you do, because it's such an important aspect of the work we do. Sometimes we feel a bit beleaguered in the court, just dealing with rogues and rascals, or so it seems from time to time. It's very much a part of the community, as we emphasise every time we see a new panel of jurors come. I don't know how many of you have sat as jurors. Quick show of hands, who sat as a juror? Good, good. It's the only public duty any of us are called upon to perform now. And it's such a hugely important one. So the invitation is there. I'm a local boy, and I owe an awful lot to this council, or to this borough, I should say. My parents came from Ireland in the 1950s as immigrants, looking for work. They were keen on education. They sent my brother and I to South Haringey Primary, still there, I'm pleased to say. And from South Haringey Primary, we went off, being good Catholic boys, to St Aloysius. And from St Aloysius, my brother went off, he became a doctor, he retired recently, lucky man. And I went off to read law at Leicester. We were the first in our family to go to university. And we were only able to do it because the London Borough of Haringey paid for us. As simple as that. Our student grants were funded by the local authority, and what a tragedy it is. Tragedy it is, I'm afraid, that sort of support has become so much more difficult to obtain. The grant was given, there was no expectation that it would be repaid or anything of that sort. So you've appointed a local boy. I owe a huge deal to this borough, and I hope that becoming the second recorder, I can begin at least to repay that debt. So thank you all very, very much indeed. I'm very grateful to all of you.
And he was actually going to live the same life everybody else is living, and doesn't feel belittled because of the life they were forced to grow up with.
I call on the leader of the council to speak.
It's exclusively been with the son of the prolific and prolific Church of England, Sir John Sly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and forgive me, there will be some repetition, but I think some points are worth repeating. So having a strong relationship between the judiciary and local partners, including the local authority, is recognised as an effective way of supporting community safety. One means of recognising that such a relationship exists is through the appointment of an honorary recorder for the borough, and Judge Dodd is our second, as he's pointed out to us tonight, and very good to see Judge Noel here as well. His Honour Judge Dodd was appointed resident judge at Wood Green Crown Court in 2016 and is a senior judge at this Crown Court. This council was pleased to receive the suggestion from the Royal Courts of Justice. And as Judge Dodd has already highlighted for us, his parents were born in Ireland and came to England in the 1950s, and both his brother and himself attended South Haringey Primary School and then went on to St Aloysius College in Highgate. Judge Dodd then went to Leicester University to study law and was called to the bar by Gray's Inn in 1979 and started at the criminal bar practicing from chambers in London. There he stayed prosecuting and defending in criminal trials in London and the South East before taking silk in 2007 and becoming first a part-time judge in 1999 and then a full-time judge in 2012. He was appointed to Wood Green in 2016 and has been with us ever since. We are proud and privileged to have someone who grew up in Haringey to hold this community position and wish you all the best in carrying out your duties in the role. Thank you.
Join me, that shed, as I go undercover to hunt down those shoppers.
I call on the leader of the main opposition to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I first place on record my thanks to Judge Lucas for the work he has carried out during his time as the first honorary recorder for Haringey. The council's role within the community is far-reaching, especially when it comes to leadership. As part of this, it has a responsibility to seek to develop an understanding of the justice system amongst all sections of the community and to build a relationship between the council, the justice system and the community. The Lord Chief Justice is keen for councils to use the power available to them to make an appointment as proposed this evening. And with His Honour, Judge Dodd KC, we are privileged to have an experienced judge at Wood Green Crown Court who has handled a number of high-profile cases, delivering justice in London and beyond, as well as many, many more local cases, and who himself is from Haringey, as we've heard this evening. We are really pleased to support the recommendations and his appointment tonight. Thank you.
Now on channel 4, a political slot from the Liberal Democrats.
I call on the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the recommendations in the report be agreed.
Is the report agreed? It is agreed.
I want to shine a light on the growing issue of hidden homelessness in Eastbourne. This includes people who are in temporary accommodation. The number of households reached nearly 120 after this year. That's the highest figure since records began in 1998. And this includes a 14.7%. Devon Bradley, character actor, dancer, singer, kind of super friend. He's turned dream come after that. Everyone was in on it. Well, it wasn't. You're telling me the police force, the TV news, a courthouse full of people, and a popular entertainer have nothing better to do than to teach me and Bart a lesson?
I know it seems far-fetched, even insulting to your intelligence, but there's a simple and highly satisfying explanation. You see,
Item 8. I call on the monitoring officer.
Madam Mayor, I have no matters to report.
We are at item 9, reports from committees, and we have 4 reports to consider as part of this item. These are reports from Cabinet, Audit Committee and the Standards Committee. I first call on the Leader of the Council to move her report and recommendation on the approval of the Borough Vision, and as this vision involves partners, I will be using my discretion as Mayor to allow a couple of partners here today to speak as part of the Leaders Speaking allocation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report sets out a vision of what we want for Haringey by 2035, a place where we can all belong and thrive. Last year, our LGA peer review recognised that a long-term vision with partners in Haringey was important. In developing this vision, we have further grown in our ambition of being a collaborative council following the principles of the Haringey Deal. Our community's partners and residents joined us to share their ideas for the future of Haringey. This vision is a product of their ideas, inputs and spirit. It's co-production at its finest. Here in our borough, we are fortunate to have world-class sporting institutions, innovative businesses, great parks, brilliant schools, and most importantly, a talented and inspiring population from many places around the world and many walks of life. We are a place where people can come together, where difference is celebrated, and where anything is possible. But we know Haringey can be even better. And this vision puts us on a firm track for the next 10 years to get us there together, where we will make our borough the fairest, greenest and safest place it can be, a place where everyone can thrive and where everyone can feel that they really belong. Thank you.
Director of Haringey Giving.
Thank you. That's a bit echoey, sorry. Hi, I'm Director of Haringey Giving. We exist to enable positive change in Haringey through local giving. We work collaboratively to raise and leverage new resources into the borough, and we're part of a network of giving schemes around London. As an ambitious, independent, cross-sectoral partnership, we welcome the shared ambition of the vision document and the opportunity to feed back in this way this evening. We believe that everyone has something to give to help create a more equal Haringey. Since 2019, we've raised almost £1 million of funds and resources. We've funded 158 projects supporting tens of thousands of people. As a permanent initiative, we welcome the 10-year period of the vision and the positive narrative about our borough. We want to see an equal, inclusive Haringey where people can make positive change happen. We therefore welcome the equity and inclusion strand as being central to achieving the vision. The principles, ways of working and partnership section sets out a constructive collaborative approach. The vision's priorities align with our own, and we're ready to continue working collaboratively with the council to achieve these. On a related note, our annual Haringey Giving Week fundraiser starts on the 3rd of December, and our corporate funding partners are ready to match any donations that we can get. We hope you'll join us and help us raise awareness so that we can support even more people who are struggling due to inequality and disadvantage in our borough this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire Henderson.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the Haringey vision on behalf of North Central London Integrated Care Board. So that's the wider NHS. We welcome the vision of Haringey being a place where people can belong and thrive. That chimes with the sentiments in our population health strategy, where inclusion and well-being are at the fore. The NHS works in close partnership with the Council and Haringey partners, and we're keen to continue to build upon that work in support of your vision. Our priorities as an integrated care system include improving population health, tackling inequalities, and using the NHS to support broader social and economic development. And I think these align really well with your calls for action. We recognise many of the challenges identified within the vision and are committed to action on them. We've heard similar concerns from residents through our own engagement and listening, and we also thank our partners such as Public Voice and the Bridge Renewal Trust for their valuable insights, which helps steer our work and help us work in partnership with you. Whilst I can see the opportunities for partnership working in all 6 calls for action, I wanted to focus on just some work around the call to action 5, tackling inequalities in health and well-being. The ICB shares commitment to the priorities of reducing inequalities in health outcomes, focusing on preventative pathways and reducing barriers to access to primary care. They're all reflected in our own population health strategy, and we've begun work already in Haringey and are well positioned to improve further. A couple of examples of those. We've already invested £1 million a year to address health inequalities, working with local partners and communities to develop innovative approaches. Looking at prevention, we've worked in partnership with the Council to develop a new pathway for children's speech, language and communication needs, supporting children earlier in their journey. And Haringey Wellbeing Network, led by Mind, has supported over 1,300 residents a year and is jointly funded by the Council and the NHS. Finally, with regards to primary care, we've invested more capital investment in Haringey than other boroughs to deliver primary care estate, and we've recently had the opening of the fabulous Wellborn practice nearby. Practices are delivering more appointments now than ever before, but we know demand remains high, and we hear, as you've pointed out, access to primary care needs to improve. All our GP practices are working to improve access as part of a national programme and local work. And we've also worked with pharmacies to launch Pharmacy First, enabling residents to get help for 8 conditions directly from pharmacists. NCL has also extended a scheme to provide free prescriptions for those on low incomes. And I think all these actions work really well with your vision. There's always more we can do, and I look forward to continuing to work in partnership with Haringey Council to respond to the calls for action and make Haringey's vision of a place where residents belong and thrive a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Are the recommendations of the report set out at page 33 agreed? It is agreed. I next invite Cabinet Member for Communities to move her report on the Gambling Act policy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the licensing authority, we are required to publish a new statement of gambling policy for the borough at least every 3 years under Section 349 of the Gambling Act 2005. The current policy is due to expire in January 2025, and this policy is a statutory requirement. As part of the consultation, feedback was provided by the Licensing Committee and Overview and Scrutiny Committee. One of the key concerns raised was the proliferation of betting shops, particularly on our high streets. However, it is important to highlight that we are restricted by legislation which sets out a duty on local authorities of aim to permit. Haringey Council takes its responsibilities as a licensing authority seriously and has concerns about the proliferation of betting shops, particularly on the borough's high streets. Hence, we're exploring ways on how to ensure there is reform in legislation. Moreover, under Haringey's revised gambling policy, gambling premises operators will need to take into account and put in place measures to minimise risk in areas of the borough that show a level of deprivation and vulnerability to gambling-related harm. Please join me in supporting this report and the recommendations set out in page 74 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Are the recommendations of the report set out at page 74 agreed? It is agreed. I next invite Councillor Dogan, Chair of Audit, to introduce his report on the quarterly update of Treasury Management.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I would like to move the Audit Committee's report and its recommendations to the full Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Please can we agree the recommendations in the report set out at page 180? It is agreed. I next invite Councillor Ali, Chair of Standards Committee, to introduce his report on minor changes to the Councillor Complaints Handling Protocol and Council Standing Orders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendations on page 2 and page 3 of the supplementary pack. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions on the report? Please can we agree the recommendations in the report set out in the supplementary pack at pages 2 and 3? It is agreed. That concludes this item. Item 10, we have received a deputation from Carmel Cadden on Haringey providing community food banks in need of premises access to empty council premises for a minimum of 12 months. Carmel is joined by Rose Dakuo, Charlotte Gray, Nandita Lal and Jane Leggett. Carmel, please come to the microphone and you have 5 minutes to make your representation.
Good evening, Haringey councillors. This deputation is from the Community Spaces campaign, which was launched in June by local residents who are active in a range of community groups and organisations across the borough. We are concerned about the number of community centres in Haringey which have been closed, stand empty, or have been repurposed. This has had a negative impact on much needed community projects, many of which are food related. So this is our request tonight. Will Haringey Council commit to providing food banks and community food projects in need of premises access to empty council premises for a minimum of 12 months? So we are asking the council to help us find suitable places for these community food projects close to the people who rely on them. So there's an odd situation in Haringey. On one hand, there are many council-owned empty properties. And on the other hand, there are community projects unable to fully deliver their benefits to people in need because they have no premises to operate from. Community food projects don't have many resources, so we can't pay commercial rates or rents. We need designated community spaces rent-free because we provide significant social value to the borough. For example, 1, we help vulnerable Haringey residents who feel they have nowhere else to go for basic needs like food, advice, and friendship. 2, we help the council meet their duty of care towards residents, especially those who are at risk. And 3, we provide financial and environmental value to the borough. By redistributing food that would otherwise go to waste, we help reduce waste costs and eliminate and stop climate and reduce climate damaging emissions from incineration. Despite having to operate outside in all weathers, we continue to run food banks and deliver hot meals in the areas where they are most needed. But not having a secure base means that we cannot accept all the food donations we're offered because we don't have a place to store food and nowhere to plug in fridges or freezers. So we have people standing outside food banks with no hope of going inside eventually to sit down with a hot drink and on a chair and talk to someone. Everything happens outside. And I feel personally deep shame when I volunteer at the food bank in Northumberland Park, where we have been operating weekly outside for 21 months since we were ejected from the community centre, the Eric Allen Community Centre. Now, this was on the basis of a fire risk. In April, this building had been renovated and is now safe to return to. So for 7 months, it has stood empty, safe to be for us to return to, for other community groups to operate from, but we can get nowhere with the council. It stands empty, and every week, people waiting at our food banks, elderly people, women with young babies, people who are quite desperate, say to me, why can't we go in there? And the answer, I say, we're trying. And then they say, they just don't care. And I can't say anything to that. So the lack of appropriate premises seriously reduces the effectiveness of our food projects. Since losing our secure premises, we have had to turn away from the borough thousands of pounds worth of donated food, which could have been distributed to the growing numbers of Haringey residents at our food banks. We have approached the council. We had a positive meeting on the 18th of September, organised at our request by Councillor Ovat. The 4 community food projects represented at that meeting were asked by Jonathan Kirby, now Interim Director of Placemaking and Housing, to send him their urgent accommodation needs. We did this on the 27th of September and were contacted by Sarah Lavery, Head of Housing, on the 18th of October. She asked us to send her similar information.
Carmel, you need to finish up because we're out of time.
Well, I thought I had 5 minutes.
You've had 5 minutes.
Okay, then I'm nearly finished. So we're volunteers working in community. What the point about that was that we're still waiting to hear from Sarah Lavery. We're volunteers, we're working community-led grassroots food banks in this borough, and we see the poverty crisis that's taking grip, with more people, many in work, being forced to rely on community support. We need bases with kitchens where nutritious food can be prepared, eaten and
Carmel, you need to finish. We need to go to questions.
Okay, can I just say that the question is, the council has unused premises in areas where these projects are needed, and we just need to identify which ones are suitable and make practical arrangements. And please give this proposition your support. It's an easy match. Thank you.
Are there any questions from councillors for the deputation? Councillor Buxton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your deputation, and thank you for the work that you do in Haringey. It might help since you're running out of time, but what correspondence have you had with the council today? You mentioned it briefly in meeting of the 18th, but what further correspondence have you had?
Well, we had a meeting on the 18th. That was a very positive meeting. And then we followed it up with, we sent Jonathan Kirby our list of emergency and accommodation needs on the 27th of September. We were contacted by Sarah Lavery on the 18th of October. We sent her the information she asked on the 23rd of October, but we haven't heard since then, despite sending follow-up emails.
My name's Charlotte. I'm from one of the food banks. I have actually been in contact with Sarah because she had suggested that because they hadn't managed to find any properties to suggest to us, she suggested I look at the Haringey commercial properties webpage and keep an eye on that. So I did for a number of weeks. Eventually a property came up which I thought might be suitable. So I contacted her and I've been emailing her about that. Initially I was told I couldn't have a viewing by the agent. Sarah then arranged for me to have a viewing. I went back to her and said the property is suitable. I would be very interested. I then got told I had to go and apply and make an offer alongside all of the other profit-making businesses that had made an offer, and some of them were apparently above market value. And I was then also told that I would have to pay a £500 deposit and then a £3,660 legal fees for taking out the lease should I actually be awarded it after being considered with all of the other businesses. I've then liaised with Jonathan and Sarah, and Jonathan has got back to me about 6 o'clock this evening and told me that they would waive the £500 initial non-refundable deposit, but we would still have to just apply along with all of the other businesses that are non-charities. So I don't really know how that's going to work out.
Okay, I call on the Cabinet Member for Communities to respond.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I have one more question?
Councillor Adamu, what had her hand up before?
Councillor Adderby, may I ask a question?
You listen to it.
No, I'm going to get rid of it. I don't want
Thank
to.
you, Madam Mayor. I was told I'm not allowed to ask any question. I never experienced that in all the years I've been on this council, that somebody's not allowed to ask question. Anyway, I'd like to thank you for everything you do for our borough. And I also have a question. How many people do you, roughly, how many people are you able to help? And how many more can you help if you have the right premises? Thank you.
My project initially, when we have premises, which we lost about 4 months ago, at the time we were feeding about 780 households across 5 church congregation food banks who also run their own public food banks. We also supplied 2 charities, 2 mosques, and also we had a group of volunteers that would do hampers to deliver to the elderly and disabled and vulnerable. Since we've lost the premises, we no longer have, we can take, instead of 5 to 6 deliveries a week, we can only pick up 1, and we have to give it out straight away on the street. So we can feed maximum 140 with 1 van load, and it's gone in half an hour. So the impact is quite different. What we can do with a unit of our own, and our plans, should we get space, is to expand our project. We want to expand our deliveries to the vulnerable. We want to get more deliveries picked up, or more deliveries and more pickups. We want to get more food in. We want to feed more people. We want to save more CO2 emissions. Everything that we give out and save in food waste terms is astronomical in terms of how many CO2 emissions we are saving per week. It's something like 25 tons of emissions that we save per week just in our food bank. And the other food banks have their own numbers.
My name is Rose Dakio. I run a project called Homegrown Tottenham. 2 years ago, we have a meeting where we was getting evicted. We have a meeting with Pere Ahmed and Ruth Gordon. And we will promise someone gonna get in touch with us to help us to get a space. 2 years after, to today, we still have no space to run our food project. Homegrown Tottenham was not just food project. It was an educational service for family and young one. Was doing language classes, home club. There was a lot of things we was doing in Homegrown Tottenham with a lot of wonderful people in the community. It was feeding the food, and the young people was coming to Homegrown Tottenham like every single week, at least 500 people a week, families and young kids. And I've done a documentary about the reason why we was getting evicted in Tottenham Hill at Ashley House. We was based in the Ashley Road. And it still looked like no one's seeing us. We still with no home. And there've been empty promises. I meet few councillors in this building, they're sitting down here today, empty promises and nothing's happening. That's the only thing I wanted to say today.
I can allow one more question. I call on the Cabinet Member for Communities to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your deputation. I understand your concerns. That's why I met you and had that meeting. We have been proactively working to address those concerns, and I know you acknowledge that Sarah and Jonathan have both been in touch, and even today, Jonathan had sent you an email corresponding with yourselves. No one in this borough should have to go without food or have to buy poor quality food. In the 21st century Britain, we shouldn't be in a position where food poverty and the cost of living crisis exist and impact so many residents. The work that food banks do for members of our community is remarkable, and we are very grateful. We're passionate about the work we do in collaboration with multiple community groups to tackle food poverty with the ultimate aim to abolish it. We want to have a fair and equitable way of deciding how we make it easier for voluntary and community sector organisations to access safe space so they continue doing the vital work that they do to support residents, especially our vulnerable residents. My colleague, Councillor Gordon, Cabinet Member for Placemaking and Local Economy, has led on a Strategic Assets Management and Property Improvement Plan, SAMPIP. SAMPIP describes the open and transparent process the Council has adopted in allocating our available property to meet our Council objectives. We know VCS organisations struggle, which is why I, as a Cabinet Member for Communities, am working on a community assets policy, which will be working alongside the SAMPIP to ensure that council-owned buildings are providing the maximum benefit to all of our communities and are able to react to the changing needs of our communities over time. This policy is being co-produced with our VCS sector and a consultation is due to launch next month. I want to highlight this policy because it will give the VCS a stronger footing in the competitive property market. It is designed to allow the council to ensure that we manage our assets to the highest standards on behalf of council taxpayers and for the benefit of all residents in the community. I want to be clear, we don't only consider finances when it comes to bids on our properties. We look at a range of factors. Our goal is to always be transparent and consistent in our approach. We are also aware that you have been in correspondence with the council regarding your requirements for a space. We met you and your colleagues, as you mentioned, on the 18th of September, and I'm aware conversations are ongoing. The service are proactively working to explore the best options to meet the needs of your organisation. I also want to highlight that as a responsible local authority, safety is a priority when leasing any of our buildings. Whilst there may seem to be unoccupied building, we cannot and will not lease any building that hasn't been refurbished to a reasonable standard and complies with all fire, health and safety regulation as a minimum. In terms of food banks and food strategies, my colleague, Councillor Arkell, and her predecessor have done a lot of work in this area. In 2020, the council formally created the Haringey Community Food Network, bringing together food banks, food charities, and local community groups. The Haringey Food Action Plan was published in September 2023. It created 4 key action areas with collaborative working groups to support them. These are emergency and crisis provision of food, healthy eating, sustainability, food businesses. We want to drive these actions wherever it can, including helping food banks to find safe, secure, sanitary and dry premises to operate from. As you can see, my colleagues and I are working hard to support the VCS and community food bank organisations. We have done all this work because we want to see our communities thrive. However, we need to review our community assets to ensure that there is a fair and equitable process for voluntary and community groups who occupy or wish to occupy the limited number of premises that we have. We want to work with you to develop a strategy and process for community assets that work for residents and local organisations. I hope you are willing to work with us for the betterment of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Carmel. Thank you, Carmel, for your representations. You and your colleagues can now return to your seats. Thank you. Item 11. As part of this item, we also have public questions. Therefore, we will begin with these and then move to receive the responses to the written questions, and then finally consider the council oral questions. We have received 7 public questions and there are 3 questioners not present: Sam Calderwood, Frank Laverty and Caitlin Clune O'Connor, and they have all asked questions on matters concerning the visitor permit scheme, and the responses will be given in writing. We have a further 3 questions from Sue Lewis, Laura Forrest-Hay and Niall O'Connor on the same matter. In the interests of time and efficiency of the meeting, I will ask all 3 questioners to come forward and ask their questions together, and given the matters concern one specific cabinet portfolio, I will ask the Cabinet Member for Tackling Inequality and Resident Services to respond. After this, I can only allow one supplementary question from each questioner for clarification purposes. Please can Sue Lewis, Laura Forrest-Hay and Niall O'Connor come forward to the table. You may ask your questions.
I'm Sue Lewis. At the most recent scrutiny committee, Councillor Chandwani said she did not think the council should be limiting the number of visitors a resident can have. This was in response to the suggestion that the current permit allowance could be reduced. Do you agree that charging constituents up to £16.80 a day, which is what would happen if the daily permits are removed, to have a visitor, does just that to those on modest or low incomes, and further highlights the huge disparity between the east and west of the borough?
Can Councillor Chandwani respond, please? Can we have the second question?
Councillor not here then?
No, you can ask your question first and then the councillor will respond to both of you.
Okay. So I'm Laura Forrest-Hay. I'm also talking about the daily parking permit removal proposal. I would like to ask, how will the added financial cost of the removal of daily parking permits affect the health and well-being of residents in Haringey and the state of their properties for people that rely on regular carers or require repairs and improvements to their homes?
Can Councillor Chandwani respond, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much for your questions. As you can see, I am here. I got told I had to answer at the end. So thank you for coming to full council and engaging in the democratic process, which we take seriously. I firstly would also like to apologise for how cold it is in here. It's absolutely freezing. I'll start by saying that no decision's been made. The proposals that make up the current statutory consultation includes the daily visitor permits, and I want to reiterate again, no decision has been made. As with all of the proposed changes in the current statutory consultation, we want residents and businesses to have their say. Our aim is to get a wide range of views so we're able to make an informed decision together. The consultation is still open and is open until the 20th of November, Wednesday. We encourage everybody to share their views on these proposed changes via the statutory consultation process, and then we're able to consider all the views via that process to make a decision in a clear, transparent and objective way. I'm going to ask somebody to send you the information about the care at home permit, which should directly answer one of your points, but I thank you very much again for your time.
You can have a supplementary question for clarification purposes.
Thank you. By the way, Niall O'Connor has had to go to A&E, so he wasn't able to ask his question. The supplementary question is about the petition. We've been informed that the petition we've raised already of 404,634 signatures that are against the removal of daily parking permits. We've been told it won't be debated until March 2025 by council. So my question is, what is the time frame for the decision making?
This isn't relevant. Can you stick to supplementary question responding to what Councillor Chandwani has said?
Well, she was saying they're going to wait until the consultation's finished, and I'm asking, what is the time frame? When are they going to make the decision? Because the petition has been delayed by council, even though it's complete, till March 25. Which seems like you shouldn't be making a decision until that petition has been accounted for and taken into consideration.
Councillor Shandwani has explained the consultation process.
No, she has. I'm asking for the date. I'm asking for a time frame. She's told me that we have to wait until the 20th. We knew that anyway. We've all been doing the statutory consultation. That was delayed because the council had made a mistake on the initial proposal, so they had to redo it, and it's delayed it past this meeting. If they hadn't done that, we could have had the petition accounted for at this meeting and taken into account. This has already been covered by local radio and BBC London, that this petition is 4,634 at the moment and climbing, and the council, if I'm right in thinking, is not going to consider it.
The position of the consultation.
No, I just wanted to
So
give
we're
us a
going to
time
move
frame.
on.
What is the time frame? When is it going to be decided? That's the simple question. What is the date?
Councillor can respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your question, which I believe the part that I'm answering is the time frame of what happens after the consultation closes. So there is several proposals in the current consultation, and we also are going to be hitting Christmas in 5 weeks' time, not to depress anybody. So the team are going to be going through all of the responses. Some of those proposals have more responses than others. So at the moment, we're looking at about January, but it could extend to February because there is a human team that needs to look through it. So I know that isn't giving you a specific date, but we're looking at early New Year.
I'd like to thank the public questioners for attending, and we will now move to the written questions. I've accepted the responses to the written questions admitted as late business. Please can we receive them? Is that agreed? We have now 9 oral questions from members. Please can members participating in this item be ready when I call them for their question item. We will also be timing the responses, so please can councillors be aware of this. Question 1. I ask Councillor Connor to put her question to the Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, there have been a number of complaints regarding the running of the leisure centres since the council took over, and in particular shock and anger at the reduction in the hours in the Lido, something that was not publicly proposed prior to the takeover. The justification for bringing the service in-house was a better service for residents, but when will residents see improvements and much better engagement? Thank you.
Councillor Arkell.
We are absolutely committed to improving the active wellbeing offer across the borough, as reflected in the significant financial investment that has been made in our leisure centres since we insourced them on the 1st of October. We've prioritised service improvements to ensure that facilities are clean, safe and well maintained, and have already implemented many of these during the handover period and every week since. The council continues to roll out this programme of improvements and investment, and elements of the centres are being improved every week. In the weeks leading up to the handover, Fusion dismissed several lifeguarding staff, and this coincided with many of the students' summer lifeguards returning to the studies for the autumn term. This has left the council with fewer lifeguards than it needs to be able to run this full swimming programme safely. The reduced opening hours of the Lido are temporary, whilst further lifeguards are recruited, and we have been working closely with the Park Road Lido users group to ensure they've been updated regularly about the actions we've put in place to manage the situation we were left with by Fusion. Adverts are live, and when the fully vacant lifeguarding posts are recruited to, they will add an additional 432 hours of lifeguarding across both Park Road and Tottenham Green pools. This level of lifeguarding will not just replace the vacant lifeguarding posts, but will increase the overall number above what an outsourced service offered. This will build more resilience into the swimming programme and help to reduce future disruption to pool availability. We expect to see the new lifeguards starting throughout January and February, depending on their notice periods.
I invite Councillor Connor to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So one benefit for bringing the leisure centre in Park Road in-house was based on the wellbeing model that was advocated that would improve residents' wellbeing and health and wellbeing. So when will we be seeing this model published so that we can have a look at what's involved in that? Thank you.
So as you'll be aware, we've gone through already one really big engagement phase to understand what our residents wanted our leisure centres to be offering, and that will be opening up again in the period after Christmas, where we'll be doing further deep dives to understand exactly how our services should be used by our residents, but how we can also link those up with our parks and green spaces to ensure that residents who may not want to use leisure centres but use other assets that we have in the borough, to ensure that we can offer a whole range and a holistic model of wellbeing and active engagement for our residents here in Haringey.
Is there a second supplementary question from Labour Group? That completes question 1. Question 2. I ask Councillor Barbara Blake to put her question to the Cabinet Member for Housing and Planning, the Deputy Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have embarked on an ambitious house building programme with 3,000 council homes due to be completed. Many of these properties are acquisitions and form part of larger developments. Can the Cabinet Member outline how this and other measures are helping to address the housing crisis facing many families in Haringey? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So, as you know, we've embarked on an extremely ambitious house building programme with 3,000 council homes due to be completed by 2031. So many of these properties are acquisitions and form part of larger developments. That's your question. Sorry. Already said the 3,000 new homes. You've said that as well. So just to say, we've got 696 homes completed and a further 1,392 on site. So these include 191 homes at Hale Wharf that sit between the canal and the paddock. They're due to be extremely beautiful council homes with views either side. But we also target well-priced homes in new developments to buy for council homes, making the affordable share of private developments genuinely affordable to local people in the borough. But it's not just through development that we're helping to address the housing crisis. We're also purchasing a number of properties which are then leased to homeless families through the Haringey Community Benefit Society, the HCBS. The HCBS currently has 337 homes leased, with the expectation that we'll have more than 400 under lease before the end of the year.
I invite Councillor Barbara Blake to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet Member for that response. So the supplementary question is, can the Cabinet Member talk about how we are supporting those facing homelessness in Haringey? Thank you.
Thanks. So there's a no one-size-fits-all approach to those facing homelessness. And we know that homelessness can and does have a profound impact on families. And that often the best outcome is actually to remain in their current home. So we call that prevent. So we try and prevent homelessness through various means, by whether it's negotiating with landlords or assisting people in sustaining their tenancies, and other help that we can provide. But if they are then faced with homelessness from their current home, then we have to provide a relief of that duty. So in order to provide temporary accommodation for people in the borough, our housing demand programme includes initiatives aimed at accelerating the property acquisitions programme, with a particular focus on securing family.
Councillor Williams, can you complete the answer, please?
Yes, family-sized homes for temporary accommodation.
Is there a second supplementary question from the Liberal Democrats? Councillor Corley Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Cabinet Member, the Council will be able to increase its house building potential
by bringing the 450 void properties back into use. With the exception of some of them being quite costly to do so, would it not be the case that the vast majority of those could be done at a much more economical return than purchasing properties?
Don't quite understand the question. We both have to get all the void properties back into use as quickly as possible, which, as you know, we're doing through various methods, but also this acute need for what temporary accommodation for homeless families. The fact that we have families currently in hotels, that is an extremely acute need, which is the fastest response to that is through acquisitions. So that's through the TA programme, we're looking at lots and lots of different threads. We're looking at all the possibilities for trying to reduce that homelessness and temporary accommodation numbers.
Thank you. That completes question 2. I ask Councillor Emery to put his questions for Cabinet Member for Housing and Planning and the Deputy Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Haringey housing workers walked out on strike in the middle of October over a number of issues, including representatives of the union saying that resident safety was not being taken seriously. Talking to the press in response, Councillor Williams said that all repairs can be reported to us in the usual way, and we expect to deal with emergencies within the usual 24 hours to keep our residents safe and comfortable. However, when a resident reported an emergency repair for a ceiling leak, they were told that due to the strike, unless it was life-threatening, nothing could be done at the time. Just a couple of days later, the ceiling collapsed on her daughter's cot. What is being done on strike days to ensure that urgent repairs like this are attended to in a timely manner to avoid potentially catastrophic results?
Thank you, Councillor Emery. So just to be reassured, even during strike periods, we deliver our repairs service and especially emergency repairs. Alternative provisions are always put in place during strike action to ensure that residents can report emergency repairs and any reported repairs are undertaken in a timely manner. I am aware of this specific case and can confirm that the emergency repairs team visited within the same day and repairs have been carried out to fix the ceiling. Officers have been working on this case since July 24 prior to strike action, and as the case developed, appropriate action was taken. This particular property has a flat roof to the block, which has had several repairs carried out over the years. In July 24, the council were asked to attend and investigate a leak. The repairs service attended on 2 occasions on the same day. It was noted the ceiling had a small crack, but did not appear dangerous at that stage. The repair service revisited the property in October due to a continued water penetration to the ceiling. The resident was advised the ceiling needed to be made safe and repaired. However, the resident wanted the leak to be fixed before any ceiling work started. A small proportion of the ceiling subsequently collapsed and the repair service attended again to make safe, securing the immediate area and provided the advice about the use of the room until the repairs had been completed. The strike action played no part in these events that occurred. In fact, events were prior to the strike action commencing and the repairs service have attended on each occasion within the expected timeframes. There are, however, major works that need to be carried out to the roof to stop water penetration to several flats to provide a permanent solution and prevent any future recurring risks. We have received a request to visit again and complete an inspection and provide assurances that the bedroom is safe. This will be completed without delay.
I invite Councillor Emery to ask a supplementary question.
The property with the ceiling collapsed experienced a further leak above the cot just 2 weeks after the ceiling was repaired. The council's data for percentage of repairs fixed first time has seen no improvement since coming in from Homes for Haringey. When can we expect to see more Haringey repairs fixed at the first visit?
I think the case you're reporting is one, as I explained in my first response, regarding that a major work is required to that block because these leaks are occurring in separate flats in the same block. So when we go to repair, it's not repairing the substantive issue, which is a new roof is needed. So once those major works are completed, then the shouldn't have to keep going back to fix the same thing.
and obviously just a temporary fix, a bit like the major works which have taken place at Knoll Park Estate following years of ongoing repairs there. The major works that are about to start at Stella House and Kenneth Robbins' house following extensive leaks that have gone on over years, and what actually is needed doing is major works to the blocks to prevent these happening.
Is there a second supplementary question from the Labour group? That completes question 3. Question 4. I ask Councillor Peacock to put her question to the Cabinet Member for Culture and Leisure.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to ask Councillor Emily Arkle the following question. Haringey Civic Centre is a central part of Haringey's history, and many residents, including me, have fond memories of it. I was present in 1965 when my husband was elected as a Labour councillor for Bruce Grove Ward. We are proud that we are investing in this iconic building which won awards when first built. Can the Cabinet Member provide an update on the Civic Centre redevelopment programme, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peacock. I'm answering on behalf of Councillor Ruth Gordon, who unfortunately can't be here this evening, but she has asked me to share this. So the Civic Centre project is at an exciting stage, and many members will have seen an increased level of activity on site in recent weeks. And we're delighted that the Council has completed the main contract tender earlier in the summer. John Sisk and Son Limited were successful in their bid to be the main contractor for the programme, and were identified as the preferred bidder, having a great deal of experience dealing with large projects involving listed buildings and a wide variety of unique projects. As part of the delivery plan, John Sisk and Son Limited have been awarded a 12-week pre-construction services contract from the 6th of September to the 29th of November 2024. They're carrying out survey work on site to better understand the building's condition, focusing on the vital areas such as heritage joinery, internal stonework, structural repairs, concrete panel and brickwork repair, and basement waterproofing. As you said, it's a building that's steeped in a proud and important local history, and this truly iconic building holds a special place in your heart and a lot of other residents here across Haringey. It's a really exciting step forward for this project, which will re-establish the Civic Centre as the focal point for public life at the very heart of our borough. Residents will understandably ask whether the council can afford to continue with this project given the funding challenges it faces. But the business case, which we have continually retested, makes it clear that this scheme offers the best value for money of all the options available. Doing nothing is not an option, and even that, given our responsibility to the listed building, would cost millions and not bring the site back into civic use. We will continue to heavily involve residents as the scheme moves forward, with a dedicated online hub developed to enable them to monitor progress and take part in future engagement opportunities.
I invite Councillor Peacock to ask a supplementary question.
Many thanks, Councillor. Can you, in place of Councillor Ruth Gordon, outline the Council's regeneration plans for the borough leading up to 2027? We're the Borough of Culture.
Thanks for the supplementary question. Ruth has asked me to share this as well. So the Council's place-making plans focus on creating fairer, healthier, safer and sustainable and resilient places. It is led by programmes that are strengths-based and aspirational, especially for Tottenham and Wood Green. Crucially, placemaking must respond to our community's priorities, which is why Shaping Wood Green and Shaping Tottenham will now guide our journey to make Haringey a fairer, greener borough in the lead up to the delivery of the London Borough of Culture in 2027. Placemaking places a clear emphasis on embedding local communities in the process, taking a Haringey deal approach to co-production and targeting a whole council approach to the way that we will deliver together.
Is there a second supplementary question from the Liberal Democrat group? That completes question 4. Question 5. I ask Councillor Corley Harrison to put his question to the Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Services.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Carlin, how confident are you that you'll be able to close the budget gap this year of 32 million and set a balanced budget? And are you already in discussions with the government about it if you're unable to do so?
Thank you for your question. The Council's latest financial position for 25-26 shows that, like other local authorities, estimated demand pressures within adult social care, children's social care, and the provision of temporary accommodation for homeless households have increased by almost £40 million. Although proposed budget reductions of 18.8 million have been identified, this means that there remains a budget gap for 25-26 of 32 million. The figure excludes any impact from the 1.3 billion of government funding announced on 30th of October, and an early indication of allocations may be known by the end of November, when the government policy statement is published. However, this will not be sufficient to close the gap. A full line-by-line review of every directorate's budget is now underway to identify further opportunities to reduce spend and increase revenue, and those which can be delivered early in 25-26. Any use of reserves to balance the budget is not feasible. An update will be included in the next financial position update to Cabinet on the 10th of December, and then to overview and scrutiny on 20th of January before the report is presented to Cabinet in February 2025. The Government has confirmed that the application process for Exceptional Financial Support, EFS, will be the same as in previous years. Following the publication of the policy statement by the Government later this month, the Council will take a view on whether to commence formal discussions on the application process with Government. The Council Section 151 officers advises, however, that the use of EFS must be the Council's very last resort, and work will continue to identify opportunities to reduce spend, increase revenue, and put in place mitigation to reduce the gap, in demand, such that EFS is not required for next year. Thank you.
I invite Councillor Corley Harrison to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Q1 report that you just referenced showed a budget gap. I think it was around 20 million for the current year. We've not seen a Q2 report yet. That's what you're referring to. That's coming in December. There are significant budget savings proposed that need to be still need to be achieved. Are we on track to do so, or is that also now heading into a difficult situation?
Thank you for your question. The situation that we're in with the in-year budget this year is the increased cost of adult social care and primarily adult social care and temporary accommodation, as opposed to unrealized savings. So it's not that savings are not being achieved; it's that we have there's always some slippage on savings, but it's not an exceptional amount. The main issue that we have is the increased cost primarily of adult social care and children's social care. Thank you. And temporary accommodation, sorry.
Is there a second supplementary question from the Labour Group? That completes question 5. Question 6. Can I ask Councillor Grosskopf to put his question to the Cabinet Member for Children, Schools and Families?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The new government has put education at the heart of the autumn budget, tripling of breakfast clubs funding, 6.1 billion capital investment for budget and building maintenance, and 1 billion for SEND provision. Can the Cabinet Member tell us about the work the Council is doing to support young people in the borough?
Thank you very much for asking the question, and I'm very pleased to be able to give a positive reply. Of course, we don't have enough time to talk about all the work the Council is doing to support children and young people in the borough, so I'm just going to focus on a couple of things. First of all, we're very pleased, of course, delighted that the government has made good on its promise to massively expand school breakfast clubs. There is an early adopters scheme which will be launched, and we want our schools to be ready, and there is already work going on with schools to register their interest to be part of the pilot. Of course, as a pilot, it won't cover everywhere, but we hope very much that we will be included in that. We already have capital funding allocated to support the new expansion in wraparound childcare in Haringey, and we had something like £92,000, which for the nerds who are interested in school funding, like Councillor Ali and myself, that's part of the early years block. This is allocated for renovations in 3 wards, and we will be creating 46 additional places for wraparound provision. The wards of St Anne's, Fortis Green and Highgate, which I'm sure will please the party opposite, which are going to be recipients of the wraparound funding because other parts of the borough are covered. Of the money for schools capital, 6.1 billion or something like that, we already have allocations from the government for school rebuilding, including Fortismere and Hornsey School for Girls, and we hope Wellbourne. In addition, Parkview is also, I believe, on the programme. So it's altogether a good news story. We already, of course, invest our own capital, many millions of capital into our schools, and we'll have a new programme in the new school year, and we'll be having signs all over the borough telling everybody about the amount of money we're investing. So after 14 years of no investment or poor investment and austerity, it's really good to see a government investing in children, in schools and SEND once again. Thank you.
I invite Councillor Grosskopf to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for that positive answer. Can the Cabinet member outline how we ensure young people's voices are heard and are able to participate in co-production if Fairer Greener Haringey?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think we start talking to our children and young people from a very early age around the issues around climate change and producing a fairer and greener Haringey. If you go to any of our nurseries, you'll see mud kitchens, forest schools, all sorts of things which actually do demonstrate a very proactive and practical way that children engage with nature. Moving to, for older young people in primary school, there'll be active travel. We have our own mascot. What's he called? Mr. Croc. I can't remember his name, but he goes around the borough encouraging walking and active travel. So that these are all elements of how we do this. And we also, of course, have our new youth council that we met here at our last full council meeting. And we've invited young people to be part of Wood Green Voices, Tottenham Voices, and hopefully any other voices that we're going to have across the borough. And it is a commitment from all of us to engage with young people. It's their world, and they need to know how important it is that it's green and clean, and that they understand the implications of climate change.
Is there a second supplementary question from the Liberal Democrat group? That completes question 6. Can I ask Councillor Mason to put her question to the Cabinet Member for Communities?
Hi. 29,073 people, that's 1/3 of people in Haringey, are struggling to pay their rent, to buy food and pay their bills. 12.7% of these people are at risk or in crisis. Increasing number of households are filling an essential gap by visiting food banks. Currently, at least 4 food banks in Haringey do not have premises or are threatened with having to leave their premises. Please, can you assure us that you will actively and urgently support the use of empty council-owned properties by food banks and ensure that the scheme is running before the Christmas break? Thank you.
Councillor Ogat.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason, for your question. As I mentioned in my deputation response, we believe no one in this borough should have to go without food or have to buy poor quality food. The council works in collaboration with multiple community groups to tackle food poverty with the ultimate aim to abolish it. We are really proud of our Haringey Food Action Plan published in September 2023. It created 4 key action areas, which I had noted in my deputation response. The plan is a collaborative effort under the Haringey Deal principles, setting out our role and relationship in working with partners to support resilient food networks that ensures that no resident goes hungry. We want to drive these actions wherever it can, including helping food banks to find safe, secure, sanitary and dry premises to operate from. The council leases some premises that it owns in the borough to community organisations at an affordable rate. We do this so that these groups can provide social benefits to local residents, tackling poverty and inequality and building community and solidarity. As mentioned in my deputation, we are currently reviewing our community assets to ensure that there is a fair and equitable process for voluntary and community groups who occupy or wish to occupy the limited number of premises that we have. As you may remember from our meeting on the 18th of September, which you were a part of, we have engaged with community organisations and the wider sector on this issue and will be consulting local voluntary and community sector organisations in the next month on the policy to govern this process, which will recognise the social value and important outcomes that voluntary groups can deliver for our community.
I invite Councillor Mason to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you. The situation at the moment is critical. There are people who do not have enough to eat in living in our borough, and food banks come to our communities coming together as volunteers. I'd ask you, would you come along to visit some of our food banks? Would the other councillors come along and visit? We had a visit last week from the MP Bambos Sheralambos at Bounds Green Food Bank, which we really welcomed, but we haven't seen you. Please come and see us and you will see what we're doing. You will see that we are safe, that we are healthy, that we are doing a good job, and we are working with over 1,200 people a week, supporting each family of about £35 a week. So please, if you would answer that, come and see what we do and come and see why we're asking for support.
I do recognise the work that food bank organisations do and the hard work that goes into it in supporting our vulnerable residents. And yes, I am willing to come and see your food bank.
That completes question 7. Can I ask Councillor Simmons Sappho to put her question to the Cabinet Member for Resident Services and Tackling Inequality?
Is this on? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good night, Councillor Rice. Okay, my question is, can the Cabinet Member provide an update on the Council's work supporting residents with the Universal Credit migration? Thank you.
Councillor Chandwani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you as well, Councillor Simmons Sappho. If you're cold, I hope this answer warms you up a little bit. Seriously, this is a really important question. And I just want to start by saying that our approach hasn't just been about the council by itself tackling the universal credit migration. It has truly been a collective effort with faith groups, voluntary sector partners, housing, children's, schools and more. But specifically on your question about what the council has been doing, we've been running several events with all of these agencies to build capacity and knowledge so that they can give the advice and the support to residents who have been given their migration notice. We've worked with the Landlords Forum to raise awareness so that the first thing that private sector landlords don't do is start eviction proceedings on their tenants. And we're looking at how we can support residents known to us for other reasons, i.e. through children's, adults and housing, to provide them the information they need to migrate successfully. We've done a communications campaign and we inform residents of all of the different support that's available. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the community leaders that not have just been sharing the videos in the campaign, but also starred in them and made sure that they were available in different community languages. Just to answer your question, we have received notification that 3,321 residents in Haringey have successfully made their claims for universal credit and are now safely on their journey to receive universal credit. We have, however, found out that 220 have not successfully transferred, and we have contacted all 220 of those residents. 91 of those have been contacted and since made a claim. 20 of them have been contacted but have advised us they don't want to make a claim just because what they get from universal credit isn't going to be worth it because they're working. 78 have been contacted and are currently being encouraged to claim. 23 are in the process of being contacted, and 9 we don't seem to have any contact details for. The next phase and the current phase is ESA and disability benefit, which I'm sure you would appreciate is probably going to be the most complex, and that work has started and will continue.
I invite Councillor Simmons-Sappho to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have one supplementary question, Councillor Chandani, and it is, can the Cabinet member outline the work being done by the council to help residents access their vital benefits, such as carers allowance? You have mentioned several of the others, but carers allowance, I'd like to know, because it's a very niche benefit, and I'd like to hear a bit more about that. Thank you.
Councillor Chandani.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carers allowance is a lot more complicated because it depends on various things, and it's hard to kind of pre-assess eligibility. Under the last government, the carers allowance overpayment scandal has also put a lot of people off because people are too scared to claim it and then realise they've got to pay it back. So on that note, I really do welcome the government SACE review to find out what happened there and make sure it never happens again. We are putting together a cross-council programme to increase the take-up of various benefits, including carers allowance. There is £19 billion worth of unclaimed benefits every year in this country, and Haringey is missing out on a lot of money, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that that money comes into this borough and the pockets of our residents.
Is there a second supplementary question from the Liberal Democrat group? That completes question 8. Can I ask Councillor Ibrahim to put her question to the Cabinet Member for Communities?
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Councillor Over. I'm sure you will join me and the rest of the room in feeling disturbed about the rise of the far right across Europe, the rest of the world, and indeed all those who wish to sow division in our communities for whatever motivation. So can the Cabinet Member outline the work being done to tackle hate crime in Haringey?
Councillor Ogat.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Ibrahim. There is no place for hate in Haringey. We have a comprehensive hate crime strategy, and we are taking an action plan to the next Community Safety Partnership meeting for partners and stakeholders to offer their feedback. The corporate delivery plan has 3 key performance indicators, which are delivering hate crime awareness training and briefings for frontline organisations, council staff and schools, create and distribute resources to support the hate crime strategy, raising hate crime awareness, sharing ways to prevent it, as well as organising community meetings to provide spaces for victims' feedback to be heard. Enhancing reporting processes by collaborating with community organisations and third-party reporting services. As we work on these, we will be providing regular briefings through the Hate Crime Delivery Group. We regularly coordinate risk assessment and intelligence sharing with the Safer Neighbourhoods Policing Team and other partners and stakeholders to ensure there is a multi-agency approach. A strong focus is placed on community engagement events, and recently I met with 3 Muslim community organisations to raise awareness about Islamophobia reporting. Following the racist riots in the summer, which Councillor Ibrahim mentioned earlier, the team helped 5 local mosques apply for the Home Office's Protective Security Scheme, with 4 applications approved. And I'm proud to say that the team was successful in engaging with over 16 Muslim organisations in the borough during this time.
I invite Councillor Ibrahim to ask a supplementary question.
Oh, it's working. So can the Cabinet member tell us more about the Council's programme to mark Hate Crime Awareness Week?
Thank you, Councillor Ibrahim. Hate Crimes Awareness Week took place from the 14th to the 18th of October 2024. A team in partnership with the Multi-Faith Forum organised the Haringey Welcomes National Hate Crime Awareness Week event, providing a space for community members to voice concerns alongside council officers, members, the leader and senior police officers. The week consisted of various workshops and training sessions, which included 3 Follow Your Art workshops at Wood Green and Hornsey Libraries, aimed to raise awareness of hate crimes and extremism while creating safe spaces to share experiences. Apologies, I could not say this, but Scholaris Associates delivered training on neurodiversities linked to extremism, focusing on autism's impact on radicalisation risks. Disability Action Haringey led training on hate crime challenges faced by people with disabilities. Safe by CST provided hate crime awareness training, highlighting the rise of anti-Semitism. Resources promoting third-party reporting were distributed during Hate Crime Awareness Week and continue to be shared across libraries throughout the borough. I want to highlight that our work in tackling hate crime and commitment to community cohesion is ongoing.
Complete your sentence.
Yes, and we continue to do so with community listening sessions with our Muslim and Jewish communities, with the Chief Exec, the leader, and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second supplementary question from the Liberal Democrat group? That completes question 9. Item 12. We have 2 motions for consideration. Firstly, I will ask Councillor Emery to propose his motion, which is motion E, winter fuel allowance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Winter in the UK can be very harsh. Each year, thousands of people, many of them elderly, struggle to keep their homes warm. Cold homes lead to severe problems. Respiratory diseases, strokes, and heart attacks become far more common in winter. The winter fuel payment was first introduced by the then Labour government in 1997. Age UK say that this winter fuel payment, without it, the health of many old people in the country will be jeopardised. Cutting the winter fuel payment this winter with 3 months' notice and no compensatory measures in place was a worrying mistake. This decision will have a severe impact on millions of struggling pensioners who depend on that £300 to cover their ever-increasing fuel bills. This cut will disproportionately affect 3 groups of vulnerable pensioners. First, there are those who narrowly miss out on pension credit because their incomes are slightly above the eligibility threshold, often due to a small occupational pension. Unfortunately, this gap has been shown to disproportionately affect women. Second, pensioners with high energy needs due to disability, illness, or living in poorly insulated homes will face increased hardship. Finally, it's been estimated that almost 1 million eligible pensioners are not claiming the pension credit they deserve. This persistent problem leaves 1/3 of those entitled without crucial support. That last point is most important. It's often pointed out that these changes just mean the richest pensioners are paying, but the government knows this isn't true. This means that some people on far less than average will miss out on this money. To compound the issue, this winter, pensioners will lose additional assistance, the cost of living payment and the household support fund, which has been a lifeline for many. Together, these changes mean pensioners could face losses of over £600 while energy prices remain high. There are people who do not have much money to spare. These are people who do not have much money to spare. I can think of many residents in my own ward who this will push over the edge. People who have very little in savings, some who are disabled or they're sick, and due to that have higher energy costs. With energy set to be going up by 10% in January, this can cause severe financial hardship. These are the people who voted for you and your party, working class people who trust Labour to help them and instead fund the government's plans by taxing the wealthy. You judge a society by its generosities to its children and the elderly, those who have served the community all their lives. Almost 20 years ago to the day since Gordon Brown buffed up the winter fuel payment. His quote stands very true. We should, as a council, raised concerns on behalf of the thousands of pensioners in Haringey who will lose out. We desperately need a review of the process, a bigger push to bring more people into pension credit, and a pause on the implementation. The government must act now to prevent vulnerable pensioners from facing further challenges, and we must push for a change before these cuts truly bite. Thank you.
I call on Councillor Da Costa to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to second this motion and to welcome Haringey's decision to allocate part of its limited budget to support pensioners during what promises to be a challenging winter. It is reassuring to see our council stepping up where others have stepped back. However, I must also express my deep disappointment and frustration that the government is forcing local councils to shoulder the burden of compensating for its cuts to the vital benefits like the winter fuel allowance. This change in eligibility is a cruel blow to our pensioners. As we've heard, the government has restricted the winter fuel payment to those on pension credit, reducing eligibility from 12 million people to just 1.2 million. In Haringey alone, an estimated 74% of households previously eligible for this support will now lose out. These aren't wealthy pensioners we're talking about. Many of them are on or below the poverty line. The government's own analysis shows that nearly 800,000 pensioners earning less than 11,400 annually will no longer receive this lifeline. These are people already struggling to keep warm as energy prices rise. Worse still, 37% of those eligible for pension credit do not claim it, meaning the government's policy knowingly excludes some of the most vulnerable. It's not just a question of bad policy, it's a question of morality. Balancing the national budget on the backs of vulnerable pensioners, many of whom face health risks from cold homes, is indefensible. The 1.5 billion windfall from Octopus Energy could have reinstated the winter fuel payments this year, yet instead councils like ours are left to plug the gap. I support our motion's call for an immediate review of the eligibility criteria for winter fuel allowance in consultation with our pensioner representative groups. It is essential that low and middle income pensioners are protected, and I endorse efforts to boost pension credit uptake, ensuring that those entitled to support actually receive it. Let us send a clear message to the government. Cutting support from some of the least affluent in society whilst pushing councils into impossible choices is neither fair nor sustainable. We must stand with our pensioners and demand better. Thank you.
I have received an amendment in accordance with Council Standing Orders. I call on Councillor Shandwadi to move the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to those opposite for your motion. As you would have seen in the papers published last week and in the forward plan, your suggestion of using household support fund to support pensioners who are not in receipt of pension credit already is already happening and will be confirmed tomorrow. This includes all pensioners on CTRS who are above the pension credit eligibility. But I thank you for bringing this key issue to the floor of the council. It is a great opportunity to discuss some of the great work we are doing with the London Mayor, London Labour Mayor of London, and the work that he's doing pension credit. We are one of the 23 boroughs that have been working hard to increase the uptake of pension credit and ensuring that claimants who are eligible do not miss out. This is the second time we have run this campaign, and last time we increased income of our pensioners by a collective £650,000 a year. We have just started running this year's campaign last week, and we have identified 813 eligible residents who we think are eligible for pension credit and started the process of engaging them. Again, across London, 4,300 Londoners are now claiming pension credit, and up until September, 44,000 people across the UK have started to claim pension credit. In Haringey, we've also been worried about vulnerable people and vulnerable residents for a long time. We've put in measures to ensure they're supported. We're extremely proud of our work with residents who need financial need, including pensioners. Since April, the Haringey Support Fund has supported 1,065 residents with vital financial assistance. Through the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, we are supporting 25,480 residents with discounted rates of their council tax, including up to 100%. 7,876 of them are pension age. We have received almost 4,000 calls since April made by our residents who are getting help through our financial support team helpline, and 807 people are getting help through the discretionary housing payment. However, we do know that residents are facing significant financial pressures, and so our amendment allows us to continue to support our plans and kind of come up with long-term objectives. It is not just about money, it's also about transport, mobility, adaptations, the housing schemes, the sheltered schemes, etc. Our amendment calls for a continuation of fairer funding settlement so we can continue a range of support for our older generation and not just one part of the aspect. I'll leave my comments there.
I call on Councillor Brennan to second the amendment.
I wish to second Councillor Chandwani's amendment, which promises support to older residents where it's most required, and makes the case for higher funding for local authorities to provide all the services we so want to offer. As a Labour councillor, I want to assess those who need aid, believing that mutual support is one of the core values of the Labour Party. Turning to winter fuel payments, like other Labour members of this council, I wish to ensure that pensioners throughout the borough receive the money they need this year, while being aware that some residents of pension age will be less impacted by the loss of the winter fuel payments than others. Overall, I welcome the suggestion of a review into the impact of the new means-tested criteria. I'm particularly concerned about those pensioners just above the pension credit threshold, who will still find it hard to meet heating costs. And I hope that if there were to be a review, it would look in detail at this group. Unfortunately, we know that funding for local councils is very tight and has been for a number of years, and the money available is limited. Given that choices have to be made, the priority of this council is to ensure that we try to support those residents facing the greatest difficulties. I'm therefore fully behind the Labour Mayor and Council's endeavours to ensure that all those eligible for pension credit apply for it. I'm glad that letters have already been distributed to relevant residents and Council staff are standing by to help those who wish to apply. The group that we also wish to help are those who are just above the pension credit threshold, so I'm delighted that Haringey Council plans to find the money from the Household Support Grant to assist as many of these as we can. Nearly 3,000 Haringey pensioners on the Council Tax Reduction Scheme will receive extra money for their heating costs because the Council is doing what it can. In line with what I believe are the aims of the Labour Party supporting vulnerable residents, since I was elected councillor for Moswell Hill in 2022, I've tried to reach out across the ward. I've knocked on doors, leaving my card, and have visited or seen in my surgery residents from hidden corners of the ward. With each case that I met, I've taken care to try to achieve better outcomes for Moswell Hill residents, and I'm proud of some of my successes. When, having knocked on her door, I managed to get a resident rehoused from temporary housing to one of our newly built council flats in Tottenham Hale, I was overjoyed. When a pensioner in sheltered accommodation thanked me for helping him sort out his proof of address so he could receive his pension, I felt that my efforts were worthwhile. When I was able to help a hostel resident remain in the ward so that her daughter could have continuity in her schooling, I shared her pleasure. I look forward to a time when local council funding is increased to a level where we can help all those who we wish to help, and I wholeheartedly support the Leader and Chief Executive's aim to write to our local Haringey Members of Parliament to make this case.
We will now have a debate in accordance with Council Standing Orders 15.1, and I have received notification of the following speaker. You have 3 minutes. Councillor Simon-Sapu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, I stand corrected. It's good night and not good evening. I'm proud, very proud to support our amendment to the opposition motion. I've been raised in Tottenham and seen poverty and deprivation firsthand. The large gap between the rich and the poor in the 80s under a Conservative government was stark and also horrendous. The inability to change poverty through the eyes of a child and seeing my friends suffer, not being able to participate in school trips and excluded from activities due to financial constraints is what inspired me to become a social worker and also join the Labour Party. More recently, I've seen the effects of the disgraceful, hostile environment created by the Conservative government, which affected the Windrush generation, of which they have since apologised. Nevertheless, the impact remains. The past 14 years of austerity has left the UK economy, public sector finances and welfare state under severe financial pressure, and the spending needs to be adjusted to cover so many essentials. As a mother, I have to make financial decisions every minute of every day to make sure basic needs are met. And the global economic crisis has left me with little wriggle room for luxuries. The Labour government has changed the criterion for eligibility winter fuel payments to those on mean-tested benefits, primarily pension credit, as a responsible government who have stated that the finances inherited by the outgoing Conservative government was worse than they anticipated. Pension credits is one of the most underclaimed benefits, with 37% of those eligible do not claim pension credit, and 780,000 pensioners earning below 11,400 per year will no longer receive the winter fuel payment. Haringey has worked with the Labour Mayor to increase the uptake and ensure that people who are eligible actually claim. I am delighted that the constituents of Seven Sisters Ward have benefited from the intervention of the council and have claimed pension credits, and as a consequence will be receiving the winter fuel. And I'm really grateful and I fully support this motion. Thank you.
In accordance with Council Standing Orders 15.13, Councillor Emery will provide a right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate all the comments tonight, and I appreciate this is a very serious subject. I also appreciate Councillor Costa's mentioning of the 74% of Haringey households that will miss out. These are the people we must speak up for in their role as representatives. I appreciate Councillor Chandwani's comments on what is being done by the Mayor and our council, but could our government be doing more? I appreciate Councillor Brennan's comments and thank you for her support for the review. My fear is for the thousands of pensioners in Haringey who the government won't take up pension credit, leaving them out. Councillor Simmons-Sappho, as someone who grew up in the South Wales Valleys, I also have seen the effects of a lack of investment in communities. I appreciate your comments on the Labour government, but I find the comments on the dire financial situation quite disappointing. I certainly don't remember Labour mentioning in the campaign talking about using pensioners on £11,000 a year to fund their budget. One thing I do remember, though, is Rachel Reeves talking about this policy in 2014. She said, "We're the party that we've said will means test the benefit to save money." This sounds a lot more like a policy that's been a long time in the pipeline rather than a response to a budget black hole. I'll end by saying something I'm sure we'll all agree on. Yes, our country is broken. Yes, it's the Tories that have left an awful situation, and yes, they are to blame. We know that if it was coming from a Conservative government, the Labour group opposite would be putting forward our motion unamended. But there's so much more we could do. We should not be fixing the problems we have in our country by taking money from everyday people. Please consider what you campaigned on 6 months ago and make the right decision today. Support this motion unamended.
We will now vote on the amendment. If it is agreed, we will vote on the motion as amended. If it's not agreed, we will vote on the original motion. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? All those opposed? All those abstaining? The amendment to the motion is carried. We will now vote on the amended motion. All those in favour? All those opposed? All those abstaining? The amended motion is agreed. We now reach motion F, send provision in Haringey. I now ask Councillor Brabazon to propose her motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring a motion which focuses on such an important subject. I am very pleased to bring it. And also, I know as there are no amendments from any of the opposition groups, that it is good that we have a sort of cross-party unanimity on such an important subject. And I think we can all agree that the council has shown great commitment to SEND in the course of this administration. I think we all know that there's been a difficult journey in children's services in Haringey. That is not news. But what is great news is the programme of change and putting right mistakes and recognising that the system needed to change. And we have worked diligently over many years to make that system change. And being a resilient borough and being ready to recognise where we did need to make change, I think we can see that this process has now borne fruit, and that the work we've done has increased the support to children and families in the borough. And it has been a year in which we can show we have done that. Not just we started with the Ofsted inspection in February 2023, where we all overjoyed to receive the good rating by Ofsted for the first time in the borough's history. I cannot tell you how proud we all were, and I think we all share that across the whole of the administration. And it did set the context for the next steps we've taken to move and improve our special needs provision. The SEND inspection, which was a joint inspection by the Care Quality Commission and Ofsted, showed, I think, in sharp relief and to our great joy, that the work we were doing with special needs was absolutely on the right lines, and we were awarded their highest rating, which was a 1, as opposed to an outstanding, that means the same sort of thing. And it was a moment for celebration, and a celebration of how far we've come and of the measures that were put in place by the Director of Children's Services and her team, which, as I've said, was an amazing programme of system change. And I want to put on record our huge thanks to Anne, who has been our Director since 2018. Her whole management team, who of course contribute to this, whether they're running youth provision, the schools and learning, whether it's the backroom person who does all the finance, commissioning, whatever. Everybody works as a team in order to get where we are. SEND does not stand alone. The teachers in our schools, the sports staff, the parent forum, the work done to develop SEMpower, all of those elements brought together led to that great achievement. Parents of children with special needs know it's a lifelong commitment, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As I say to Anne, the professionals can go home. So working with parents is critical, and of course working with young people themselves. And one of the great things we have done this year is to develop the Elevated Youth, which is our Special Needs Youth Council. And I think you met some of the young people at full council. And today we met some more in takeover day at the council. Nationally, Madam Mayor and colleagues, 1.6 million young people in the UK are diagnosed with some special need or disability. In Haringey, about 8,000 of those, around 3,000 children have education and healthcare plans. So it's an enormous undertaking. And young people with the most complex needs are going through our school system, needing the specialist support. We do this with not enough money. Safety Valve has pushed us. It's not a programme universally popular amongst local authorities, but in my view, Safety Valve has pushed us to make change which we need to make, and we're now developing additional capacity for 170 children. I can see I've run out of time, but as there isn't any opposition to the motion, I'll leave it there and ask you to support the motion, and we hope to invite the Minister to visit the borough.
I call on Councillor Gunes to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a chair of Children and Young People's Scrutiny Panel, it's an honor to second this motion. And before I kind of put my case in support of this motion, allow me to give you a brief context about the state of the children's with SEND support need. I stand here proud and confident that we have come a long way over the last 3 years, from a SEND service that was on its knees to a service that was awarded the highest rating in its SEND service provision by a joint Ofsted and CQC inspection, in my opinion, demonstrates solid progress made over the years. So I completely agree with Councillor Brabazon for all the progress that has been made in this area. Additional funding from Labour government is a welcome start in putting education back in the driving seat to create a fairer society. And we know that a good education, regardless of one's background, will unlock tremendous opportunities that every child rightly deserves. We believe 40 years of underinvestment in SEND department need to be reversed, and government need to do that as soon as possible and adequately fund the services for children with special educational needs, because those children need to learn, thrive, and fulfill their potential, regardless of their condition and circumstances. They need to be given an opportunity, and to do that, we need more funding. In my role as the chair of Young People's Scrutiny Panel, we have had the opportunity to scrutinize many aspects of children and young people's services and their education, social care offer from a critical friend's point of view. We have witnessed many changes that brought positive changes to our children with SEND support. This administration's focus on young people and children over the years is a further testimony to some of the great work in this area that Councillor Brabazon rightly and proudly highlighted. I also like to highlight the fantastic work of our officers across the council that has done across the council, but particularly officers in children care and education department. I will equally, Anne Graham, put it on record, all the great work that Anne Graham and her team did for our children with special educational need, and also the Deputy Assistant, Jackie De Volker.
Councillor Gunes, can you complete, please?
Yes, I was just coming to the end of my completely accept that it's not an easy job, and they have done commendably well day in and day out. I look forward to unanimous support from all my colleagues for this motion. Thank you.
We will now have a debate in accordance with Council Standing Orders 15.1, and I've received notification of the following speakers. You each have 3 minutes. Councillor Mark Groskopf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a privilege to start my maiden speech and stand before you today as a member of the Orthodox Jewish community and someone who works with and has a daughter with special educational needs. With nearly 3,000 children holding EHCPs in Haringey and 8,000 requiring SEND support, a 22% increase in assessment requests from last year, this motion addresses crucial issues affecting all our communities. Our Labour government has just announced a focused package of funding measure for young people in education, as well as our local Mayor of London, continue to support those in our capital. While we celebrate these measures, including the Mayor of London's extension of universal free school meals, there are calls from communities like mine to look how these can be spread across more schools and ensure that every young person who needs the support get it. Our borough's achievement deserves recognition, particularly the good Ofsted rating, a first in Haringey's history, marking an outstanding achievement in our SEND service provision. I'm sure you all join me in congratulating our dedicated officers and cabinet members whose tireless work made this possible. This success shows that we can achieve what we can achieve when we work together for our children. The Safety Valve program creation of 170 additional SEM places has been transformed and allowed children to access support close to home. The success comes despite 14 years of chronicle underinvestment in SEND services nationally. While we welcome the recent 1 billion additional SEND funding announcement, this must be viewed in the context of the year of shortfall every day. I see families waiting anxiously for assessments and children struggling without adequate support. I strongly support the Council's call for the Secretary of State of Education to visit Haringey, and I urge this visit to include time with both Orthodox Jewish and Muslim community across Hackney and Haringey. The Secretary needs to see firsthand how faith schools are managing SEND provisions while facing these new financial pressures, and how we can work together to ensure no child falls through the gap. The 6.3% rise in young people with special education needs across England shows the growing scale of this challenge. We must ensure that every child, regardless of their faith, background, and education setting, has access to support they need. I urge all members to support this motion, not just as a political statement, but as a commitment to every child in our wonderful diverse borough, a commitment that recognizes and respects the different ways our community chooses to educate their children while ensuring no child misses out on support they need. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Connor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've heard tonight about the large cohort of young people who require special education needs support and a smaller group who also have an educational health and care plan in place. I fully support the motion calling on the government to step up and do more. And I also would like to extend my support to Anne Graham and her team for the amazing work that she has been doing across this area recently. And I know it's taken a lot of effort and hard work. Thank you. But I always know that in children's, we also need to challenge ourselves and constantly ask ourselves, can we continue to do better? So I was really pleased to see the SEND Preparation for Adulthood Action Plan 2022 to 2024 on the Haringey website. In September 2022, the Council carried out an engagement process with parents and carers, which highlighted 3 areas. The need for accountability on the action plan, services to be more responsive. The second, to improve communication links across services as well as commissioning across children's and adults. And thirdly, the local offer information to be more accessible and available in various formats. So I think the question today is to continue to challenge ourselves. Are we doing as well as we could do in these areas? This action plan also noted in greater detail what areas need to be improved on. So children in need and looked after children reviews need to be better aligned to the EHCP reviews. There needed to be multi-agency preparation for adulthood training. There needs to be more holistic views of the family in transitional planning, and there needs to be better transitions between children and young people and adults' health services, particularly CAMS. Advocacy services for young adults need to be developed, and transitions need to be better planned and planned earlier. Communication needs to be more effective, and because this causes anxiety for young people and those who support them.
So I look forward to seeing the council's plans to continually improve those areas highlighted above. The majority of casework I receive in this area falls into one or more of those areas for improvement. It often takes persistence to ensure that the young person with special educational needs and their families receive the right support. This action plan also notes how the council will measure success. It notes that performance measures will be reviewed and monitored by the SEND Joint Executive Board, and success will also be measured through a communications and engagement plan with young people and their parent carers. So I would ask that the council also looks to challenge the S&D Executive Board to ensure the basics are done well the first time. Solving problems at the outset would save families and staff an enormous amount of stress, and I would ask this process is monitored and reviewed to ensure the right support at the right time. In conclusion, I urge the council to apply robust performance monitoring to this and all future action plans, always keeping the needs of young people with SEND and their families at the centre of our efforts. Thank you.
In accordance with Council Standing Orders 15.13, please can Councillor Brabazon respond?
I'm not sure that anybody's going to appreciate another speech, except to say the work is never done, and it would be idiotic to say that everything is perfect. There are thousands of EHCPs. There are going to be issues which will arise. This is a very, very not contested, but let's say an area bounded by rights, responsibilities, different roles, and a legal framework. So when there isn't enough money, there are going to be issues, but we are always working to try and mitigate that and to meet need. I think I wanted to mention the transition service. I didn't have the opportunity before. I think this is an incredibly important development, £3 million to lead focus on the transitions of young people with special educational needs as they move to adulthood. Another hugely difficult and complex area, but I'm hoping under Anne's leadership and her chairing that we will be moving forward at a pace. I'm very pleased everybody is so committed in this borough to special educational needs, and I very much hope that the new funding from the government, some of it will wend its way into Haringey, since we can certainly do with it. Thank you very much.
We will now vote on the motion. All those in favour of the motion? All those opposed to the motion? All those abstaining? The motion is agreed. Thank you. That completes the business of this evening, and thank you to Mark Groscott for his speech, his debut speech, which ran perfectly to time, and thank you to everyone for running perfectly to time.
Can we all rise for the mayor?